In this training session, we're going to look at packages in EventSentry. What are packages and how do we use them? So in the management console down here, you can see the packages container, of course. And if you expand that, you see the 5 different types of packages that EventSentry supports. And they're sort of grouped by functionality. So if we look at the first one here, and there's a description on the right pane here, but I'm going to go over them real quickly. So event logs contains event log packages. So if we expand this here, we see a number of packages with different icons. I will go over that later. And event log packages, of course, contain rules on how to and what to do with events from the event log. And that brings me back to the overall description. So a package is essentially a collection of rules for this specific type of package. All right, so any sort of configuration you do in EventSentry as it affects the functionality. Are you monitoring performance? Are you collecting logons? Are we monitoring log files? Which events are we looking at and where are those events being sent to? That is all stored in packages. So we have the event log packages, then we have the log file packages. So log file packages look at actual text log files. So think DHCP logs, Windows update logs, Exchange Server, IIS logs, all these just plain, text logs are going to be configured with log file packages. And then we have system health packages. So this would configure anything that relates to system health. So we are talking about, and if we look at the filter here, we can get a good idea on what we can do here. So that means monitoring services, scheduling applications and scripts, backing up event logs, monitoring processes, monitoring disk space, obtaining software, hardware, and browser inventory, performance counters, so CPU, memory, disk utilization, file integrity monitoring, network time synchronization, as well as monitoring and inventorying scheduled tasks in Windows, and also the EventSentry tray application. Then we have security and compliance packages. So those sort of mostly affect the security event log and offer additional functionality on top of that. So a lot of the features on the security and compliance, and let's take a look at one here, kind of build on the security event log and offer additional functionality to make it a little bit easier to work with those raw security events. Okay, so monitoring processes, for example, monitoring logons and so forth. And last but not least, we have the validation scripts. So validation scripts are essentially a collection of checks and scripts that run on your endpoints, servers, and workstations, and they will look for potentially insecure configuration settings or other problematic settings or issues on your host. So think about things like, is Windows Defender running? Is this particular Windows version on the latest patch? Are the temp files too big? Are there certain components installed that shouldn't be installed? Are insecure TLS versions active? So it does a very comprehensive check on your entire infrastructure and points out potentially weak settings so you can address them before they turn into vulnerabilities. So that's the overall overview of packages. So each of these areas allows for the creation of packages. And let's take a look at how we work with these packages and what all these different colors and so forth mean. So if we go back to the event log packages and we expand that, what you'll notice immediately is that some of these packages have different colors. Some of them have a globe, and some of them have these little chain symbol there. Regardless of which package you're talking about, whether it's a package under event log or system health, validation scripts, they all share the same sort of properties. The first one would be, and that's the most important one, would be the assignment. So who gets the rules that are inside these packages? Because especially when you have a larger infrastructure where you have workstations, maybe you have SQL servers, mail servers, file servers, domain controllers, and so forth, they will going to have different rules, different things you want to monitor on these hosts. And that's where package assignment comes in. So looking at the list here, we can see that, and that sticks out first, are those lightly gray packages. So these packages are simply not assigned. That means they're not active on any host. So email notification, that package exists. There are a number of rules inside the package, but not a single host is going to actually execute these rules because it's light gray, which means it's not assigned. So how do we assign them? Well, there's a few different ways we can assign packages. The simplest one, or the most, well, not simple, but the most straightforward one would be to simply assign it to a group or a computer. And you do that with the assign button that you can either right click or use it in the ribbon. So here we have our group. So if we said, you know what, I want to get email notifications from my domain controllers, then I would simply check the group here, and the icon of that group, of that package, is going to turn blue. I could also say, you know what, I want every computer to email me, have this package assigned. So then you can make global. Any computer, no matter which group they're in, is now going to get the rules that are inside this package. After, of course, I deploy the configuration or push the configuration to the remote hosts. So those are the most basic ways to assign a package. But what you'll notice, if you look closely, is that some of those packages are the color green. And what that means is that those packages are dynamically assigned. Because sometimes you want packages, you don't want to worry about manually assigning packages when you could just assign them based on some properties of a computer. For example, I want a package. You may want to create a package for SQL servers that should automatically be assigned to only SQL servers. Or you may have a package for domain controllers and you just want that to be assigned to domain controllers, and the list goes on, DNS servers and so forth. So if we look at this package here, we'll notice that it's global. So you would think, okay, well, any computer is going to run this package, which doesn't really make sense because it says DNS server, and your network likely doesn't just consist of DNS servers. So if we look at the properties of this package, and we're going to click here, then we see the actual property page for a package. I'm going to go into those quite after the assignment here. But if we go down here to the section dynamic activation, we'll see that the checkbox is checked first of all. So this package is dynamically assigned, but it only will run. So the rules in this package will only become active if the DNS cache service is installed, and if it's at least Windows 2008 and a domain controller. So if it's not a domain controller, it's going to be automatically not activated, and it also has to have that DNS cache service installed. And if you look at the SQL servers, for example, again, we can right click, say properties, and here we're looking at a bunch of different services that are going to activate this package. And they're separated with a comma, and you can use wildcards here as well. MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, and so forth. If any of these servers is installed, that package is going to be activated. And you could further restrict that. You could say, well, you know, I don't want this to run on the workstation, for example. Then you could just say, okay, domain controller server here as well. But keep in mind, it's that green color that indicates that this is dynamically activated. Here's another one. This package will only run if it's at least Windows Vista. There are also tags, but you can also assign packages based on tags, and also on the platform, whether it's a 32 or 64-bit. These options here are just for event logs. Those will be covered in a separate video. Then we can also override actions. So you can go and say, you know what, if we look at these filters here, we will notice that there's the ability to assign an action to these filters. And if you have a lot of filters in the package, let's look at the DNS server, right? For example, there's a number of filters in here. And if you say, you know what, they're all going to the same one, you could override, and you could go into the properties here, and you can set the action here. And that way you don't have to set it on every individual filter. You can assign a description to a package so that it makes sense to somebody else. And of course, the global package is the same thing as if you hit the global option up there. If you're wondering what that little chain means, that's something that's specific just to event log packages. And again, we're going to go into that in the in the training videos that pertain to event log monitoring. But that basically indicates that the filters in this package are going to be chained, and that's configured right over here in this dialog here. If there's a package that you want to remove from your sites because you feel like maybe it never gets changed, you don't need to see it all the time, then you can hide that package. So you can click the package, for example, let's see here, Hyper-V, and you can click the hide button here. So that package is actually still there. The rules will still be used. You just can't see it. How do you get it back? Well, you would click on the root container of the packages, click unhide. It will show you all the hidden packages. You select the package, and going back here now, the Hyper-V package is back. So I've shown you the assignments now from the perspective, from the view of the actual packages, but you can also assign packages from the view of the group or the computer. So I can click on Workstation, and you'll notice that I also have an Assign Packages button here. So now you can see which packages are assigned to the Workstations group. And you can see quite a lot of them are actually assigned to this group. I could go in and say here, okay, well, let's assign the laptop package here. And you'll notice that it's not bold because it's just assigned to this group. It's not a global package. There's a lot of flexibility here when it comes to exceptions. So for example, you may have a package that literally applies to, let's say, 99% of your computers, but there may be a couple where this package just doesn't make sense. And so how do you go about this? Do you simply convert this global package into a manual package and assign it manually? That would be a pain, especially if you have hundreds of computers. So there's a way that you can actually block packages. So let's just imagine or take a look at this package here called email notification. I made that global, so every computer has it. But let's just say that here in this group, the Docker val, let's just say number 13, it doesn't need that package. We don't want the email notification package run on this computer for whatever reason. So then you can click the Assign Packages button here. Again, you can see all the packages that are assigned, and you can uncheck email notification. It's still bold, indicating that it is a global package, but it is not blocked from a computer. So if you click the hostname again to refresh that dialog on the right, and you go all the way to the bottom, you can see that the email notification package is blocked. So pay attention to that. If you ever run into issues where you feel like rules aren't working like they should, the package may have been blocked. You can also import and export packages, of course. There's a few additional options available for event log filters. We can export all the filters. We can try to find filters. We can also look at anomaly rules. For log file monitoring, we have a few more options here available, but again, those are a topic for a separate video. That's it in a nutshell. There's one last thing you can do with a package. If for some reason you feel like you want to completely block this package, then you can right click here. You can say disable, and now there's a red X associated with that package, which means it's absolutely disabled. You don't have to worry about assignments or anything else. The package is simply disabled, and you'll also notice that the checkbox here is clear. So then if you want to use it again, you'd have to check that checkbox.